Good day, brothers and sisters. Another day to spend with the Lord. Come, let us listen and reflect on His Word.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Saint Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not be afraid any longer, little flock, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your belongings and give alms. Provide money bags for yourselves that do not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven that no thief can reach nor moth destroy. For where your treasure is, there also will your heart be. Gird your loins and light your lamps, and be like servants who await their master's return from a wedding, ready to open immediately when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. Amen, I say to you, he will gird himself, have them recline at table, and proceed to wait on them. And should he come in the second or third watch and find them prepared in this way, blessed are those servants. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come." Then Peter said, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and prudent steward, whom the master will put in charge of his servants to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant, whom his master, on arrival, finds doing so. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his property. But if that servant says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants, to eat and drink and get drunk, then that servant's master will come on an unexpected day and at an unknown hour, and will punish him severely and assign him a place with the unfaithful. That servant who knew his master's will, but did not make preparations nor act in accord with his will, shall be beaten severely. And the servant who was ignorant of his master's will, but acted in a way deserving of a severe beating, shall be beaten only lightly. Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more." The Gospel of the Lord.
Choosing to live as God's beloved children. In his book, Beyond the Mirror, of Henry J. M. Nowen, describes his transformative experience at the portal of death after he was hit by a side mirror of a speeding car. Looking back at his life, he began to ponder on the many persons who had passed through his life and the unconditional love he experienced from them. Surviving the accident, he shares his insights on living and dying. "What I learned about dying is that I am called to die for others," he notes. "Dying is the most important act of living." He concludes that life is a long journey of preparation, of preparing oneself to truly die for others. In the process of it all, we can choose to befriend our death as Jesus did. We can choose to live as God's beloved children in solidarity with all people, trusting in our ultimate fruitfulness. The parable of the vigilant and faithful servants speaks of hope in anticipation of the definitive coming of God's kingdom. Waiting and anticipation allow us to prepare for the coming of God, to whom we will render an account of the responsibility given to us. Although we do not know the time of his arrival, the time of waiting should be spent wisely. We must comport ourselves righteously and responsibly, like the faithful servants waiting for their master's return, rather than spending our life in carousing and drunkenness. When the master returns, he himself will attend us, the servants as his reward. Faith is a realization of what is hoped for and evidence for things not seen, as it is written in the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1. Abraham is the foremost example of a man of faith. He obeyed God when he was called to leave his land of origin. He believed the divine promise that he would be the father of many nations, even if he and Sarah were old, and Sarah was also barren. He was practically hoping against hope, and his faith was credited to him as justice, that is, in right relationship with God. Abraham and the righteous people, though approved because of their faith, did not receive what they had been promised, as it is written in the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 39. This is the promise of God's perfect rest. This is because God had foreseen something better for them and for us, the gift of His Son, Jesus Christ. Surprisingly, in the Gospel, instead of the servant servicing their master, it is the master who will gird himself, have them recline at table, and proceed to wait on them. This is a gesture of love, reflecting what Jesus did at the Last Supper when he washed the feet of his disciples, as it is written in the Holy Gospel according to St. John, chapter 13, verses 1 to 20. Henry Nouwen writes that we are beloved of God before our birth, and we remain beloved even after our death. Life is just an interruption of eternity, just a little opportunity for a few years to say, "I love you too." He concludes, when we have been able to celebrate life in all these decisive moments, where gaining and losing, that is, life and death, touched each other all the time, we will be able to celebrate even our own dying, because we have learned from life that the one who loses it can find it.